Welcome back to Realm Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Robert Williams, and today I'm still joined with Brian. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Robert. Brian Waltermeyer, founder, CEO, DLT Alert, or cyber warranty embedded service.
I think something that's going to be fun is going back and listening to all these and seeing how many different ways you introduce the CEO DLT title and all of those.
I'm sure
But
that was different than the last one.
it's funny though because one of the things I want to talk about in this particular episode actually is your journey from, as I understand. I mean, I've known you for years at this point, but from essentially, as I understand it, a Wall Street person to coming up with a new cyber warranty focused tech company. Like, how did how do you go from point A to point B, and what was in there?
Okay. Yeah, so it, you know, I'll try to make it as interesting as possible. The uh, the Wall Street segment was the first part of my career. Basically finance, trading, all that stuff, and investment banking was a later part of that progression. Through the investment banking, there was some activities that I was part of that led me to an opportunity in the cloud hosting space, and that opportunity led to you and I working together,
Mm-hmm.
a whole bunch of other people working together, and the main theme, a lot of my kind of just behavior is, at least for occupational, is driven investing is driven by like macro themes and what I'm seeing or feeling or thinking. And the theme was really security focused. So
Mm-hmm.
the cloud company that I acquired was really a high density, highly secure, redundant cloud, um, much higher enterprise quality than an AWS, uh, with everything regard to service, infrastructure, networking, security. Everything was just the highest levels. Um, but part of the problem was there was a price tag associated with that, and
Mm-hmm.
as cloud computing became more commoditized, as what we see today, again, this is over 10 years ago. Um, you know, businesses migrated more towards the actual commodity pricing, cheap compute, and ease of use than more of the customized uh, high enterprise. But
Right.
that experience, like I said, was driven by looking for a highly secure delivery mechanism of a somewhat of a commodity service at the time. So really wanted to be more on the security end of things, segment ourselves, provide value that way. It didn't work out exactly as planned, but what it did do is it led us into the managed service realm as a managed service IT provider, and really dealing more hands-on with not the cloud infrastructure, although that was part of what we did, but
Mm-hmm.
more into the client infrastructure and monitoring services and providing remediation services and backup services and cloud services for them. And through those experiences, through working closely with clients and their environment and their problems, we really got a firsthand experience of everything that happens on a day-to-day basis,
Mm-hmm.
good and bad. And again, this is all predicated on security, a kind of more of a darkening period of time for people and for businesses, and what will be needed and consumed by those businesses to help get through those times. That's my own macro thesis. It's much more detailed, but I won't bore you with it. But essentially, what are the things that are going to be important to businesses to continue to advance and make progress through this period of time that I'm been forecasting? And so it's always been in this security mindset. Secure. We've done some zero trust networking as really pioneers in that space. We helped build the largest zero trust network for disparate healthcare organizations over that time, which is
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool, with not a new technology, but a novel deployment of a technology, and very rewarding. So everything has always been kind of architecting, looking how does it mesh with this overall global macro picture that I have, and what are the tools that are actually applicable and useful for businesses today. And at the end of the day, through those experiences, really dealing with businesses, small medium businesses, small enterprise, dealing with their day-to-day operations, inevitably we get roped into, like I said, the good and the bad. And the bad are, like anything in life, typically more rewarding from a teaching perspective.
Very true.
But we saw firsthand a lot of the cyber attacks that started occurring as a result of the remote workforce during COVID lockdowns and shutdowns, and the vulnerabilities that were being exploited during that time. So it was really during that time that we saw that, wow, the cyber insurance really isn't cutting it for the carrier or for the client, the business that's being protected by this stuff. I'm not saying that they didn't do what they said. We just saw a lot of problems in that process, and began to do what we do as architect solutions and figure out a way to do it better. Is kind of like the entrepreneurial spirit, I guess.
Right.
But essentially that's it. It was a a lot of ups and downs at the cloud hosting service company, and now of extremely strong interest and initial demand for the cyber warranty. So we're improving as we go, but we're still following the path of security, of protecting, and of ensuring one's position as kind of the environment gets more arduous in some ways. So that's it in a nutshell.
In a nutshell, yeah. But it's an interesting journey. Obviously, like I said, one that I think is unique, but I mean, it seems like you are very big on the anytime there's a oopsies moment, there's something to take away from it, something to learn. And
Definitely.
if I can understand correctly, kind of the genesis of DLT came from one of these incidents from the MSP side, and you just kind of looked at how that process went and went like, there's got to be a better way to do this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was. I mean, there was, as you recall, many incidents starting in the spring of 2020, shortly after
Yep.
COVID hit
Yeah,
the
with all the
US.
COVID lockdowns. Yep.
And we were really surprised at how many clients of ours that were getting hit. And most of our clients at the time were backup clients. So what they were looking for us is to retrieve data, restore,
Right.
rebuild servers and things of that nature. It was a very productive time, and it was a good time for us to help out our customers, to really say, hey, look, see, you do need this service eventually, right?
Right. Yeah.
Albeit maybe not such a happy time for them, but we were able to help them. And a few of those incidents in particular had the need for cyber insurance, some personnel issues, and things that we were really roped into on a deeper level, a professional service or a consulting level for the non-MSP people out there. And dealing with the insurance companies. Here's an example. After, I'd say, 5 to 6 months of one of our clients being fully failed over in our cloud from our cloud backups, that's the service we were providing to them, turning them on in the cloud because their on-prem infrastructure had been completely tainted, locked with ransomware, and they decided to shut it down and wipe it and rebuild it. They're running from our cloud, our support, for close to 5 to 6 months. And the client had asked me to discuss, some of our charges and our service that we were providing to them in this emergency time with their insurance carrier, so they could get those. They're having trouble getting our costs covered because they maybe weren't explaining them right. So I had a conversation with the claims adjuster person, very nice person, but she knew very little about IT services, which is surprising if you're working on a cyber insurance team, because
Very surprising.
those services are inevitably needed in a time when the insurance would kick in or a
Right.
claim would be filed. So one incident, I remember she didn't know what a VM was. For all of us, it's a virtual machine or a cloud-based server. Um, and she kept asking, what are all these VMs that this client is being charged for? So those are called virtual machines. Well, what are they? Those are the servers that we've replicated in the cloud from in their office so they can continue their business. Otherwise they would be shut down. But why do they need a VM? And I said, you know what, let's take about 10 steps back. I literally went to Wikipedia, typed in virtual machine, and sent her a copy of that. And not to be, rude or anything, but okay, I see what we're working with. And I'm not trying to point fun at this person. It's really just sort of endemic of a lot of the people in the space. This is a highly technical space. Insurance is one animal. Cybersecurity and IT services are another. To know all of them, it takes a lot. And it was really during those conversations where I was like, my gosh, the questions that she's asking is eating so much time, days and weeks, just for clarification, because she didn't already understand it. And that's money out of the insurance carrier's pocket, right?
Yeah.
Those costs are being passed on to them, maybe in whole or in part, but the costs are ringing, right?
Yeah.
So
Always.
it was that's one example, but it really became clear that this runway to get the client his bills paid, to get his operations, his machines rebuilt, all these things, it was taking so egregiously long. Now, our MSP was a recipient of that, so I'm not complaining, right? But saw how wasteful it was. This could be improved, essentially, right? And if that can be improved, what else can be improved? And it was during that time of, like I explained in the other episode, that, some new blockchain technologies were being realized to be very useful outside of things like Bitcoin as a business process.
Mm-hmm.
So being the architects that we are, we began to discuss these business processes. And it was just kind of like one of those light bulb moments where, okay, there's a lot of problems. There's a lot of inefficiencies. There's some things that could be done better. We have firsthand experience in both of these worlds, and we started putting DLT together. So that was really the, kind of the nexus of what DLT Alert was as a thought now to an actual business.
Yeah. Now here we are. And I mean, if I
Right.
remember that particular incident that you're referring to, they were in our cloud for 5 or 6 months, and the only reason they stopped was because the insurance was paying for their on-site to be rebuilt, and
Right.
that's why it was 5 or 6 months. I think, to me, that's absolutely wild. That, like, oh hey,
Yeah.
from incident, whenever the problem happened, let's just say January 1st, problem happened. Oh hey, we're in the cloud. It's not till the summer your on-site is ready to go again. That's
Yeah.
that's
It doesn't make any sense.
wildly inefficient. So I
Right.
definitely understand. We want to help things speed up, because I mean, from two perspectives. One is the client, and through the insurance company, they're paying to be in the cloud, which obviously if they had an on-site, they don't want to pay for cloud because it's too expensive. That's
Right.
debatable these days with how cheap it's become, but irrelevant to the conversation right now. And so the insurance is paying out because they got to, hey, you have cyber insurance, so we're going to pay for you while you're getting rebuilt. And then they got to pay to rebuild the on site, and everything just takes so long. When it's like,
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like you could just hire a private contractor to get it on site. I mean, if your IT guys don't know how to rebuild the environment, which I feel like that's a different discussion. But if they're going to pay to rebuild the environment, why is it going to take more than 30 days? Especially if you
Right.
already have a template and you already know how everything's going to fit together. It's so
Yeah.
so
Well,
inefficient.
the easy answer is the consultants are incentivized to take their time. And
Right.
if the insurance carrier who's hired the consultant or recommended the consultant to rebuild the environment is not really too savvy in the time to rebuild, what exactly they are doing. If they don't understand what a VM is,
True.
not much else needs to be really said. So you kind of have, okay, yeah, do this. We trust you. And he's like, great. I'll see you guys in half a year. Just keep paying me.
Right.
And that's where we saw, because we understood what it really takes. We understand that you can build a VM in hours, not days
Yeah.
or months. You can fail back from the cloud in minutes or hours, depending on this. All these things we say. It wasn't just, oh wow, that wasn't really done too well. It was like, my gosh, everything about this experience is wildly inefficient. I can't imagine how much it cost the insurance carrier in this one instance. And we kept seeing it over and over again. And so, it was, there was a big piece of wasted pie, if you will, to eradicate. And that's what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, the good news is they did have backups, and we were able to spin them up in our cloud.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's a very important thing. A lot when the lockdown and the COVID and all that started happening, a lot of people finally jumped on the bandwagon of getting backups, because
Yeah, that's true.
I think a lot of people are very much just oh, I don't need backups, nothing's going to happen to me. Oh, we're a small business. But then it's like, oh no, your whole system got ransomwared. Sorry.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
that's devastating to small businesses, because they just don't have the resources to just keep going. Some of the larger businesses, it's like, oh, hey, we don't have backups. We got hit with ransomware. Just wipe the servers and rebuild them. We'll just keep chugging along. Smaller businesses
That's
don't
true.
really have that luxury. So,
Yeah. And if they're down for weeks or something like this, it doesn't really matter if they get that insurance check cut to them in 3 months, because the business is done. Right.
yeah.
So seeing and knowing that, and also seeing that there was a migration to more IT services like cloud backups, some more secure services like endpoint detection and response,
EDR, yeah.
then again, the architecture is clicking. Well, if we embedded directly with those tools, could we start to eliminate some of the waste in the process that we've seen and still provide a viable product that can be used by the business when they need it? That was kind of the objective that came to light as a causation of these issues. Right.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Anyways, getting back on track here. Before we kind of close out, I just wanted to ask a question of, you came, as we mentioned at the beginning of this episode, you came from Wall Street into a managed service, into creating a cyber warranty company. What is something from a non-IT perspective that you learned getting into IT that you think should be widely known?
Something about IT?
Yeah, like something that you didn't really know of about IT, like maybe, like I just mentioned, like the importance of backups or the importance of patches and things like that. What's something that kind of you've taken away from now being in the IT sphere, if you will?
Yeah, what I would say is, one, I'll qualify myself at the beginning of this process from the Wall Street to cloud IT transition. When I was talking to the owners of the business that we acquired, I really didn't know what a server was outside of a box that I'd seen in the closets at our hedge fund. Okay, I think it's some kind of computer. It's fast.
You're not wrong.
You know what and so that was really the starting point. So qualify with that, and you can understand I'm certainly not making fun of that insurance adjuster when I qualify her, because I was
because you were
less knowledgeable when I started. But what I would say about what I've learned is that third-party IT services can be so valuable to a small, medium business or even a larger business, just as software is useful for everybody. It's just an extension of technology, and when you do it as a service, it adds scalability and typically cost reduction from what it can be done by itself. So I know that's kind of a broad, almost like a pitch on the services itself, but I really had no idea that that there's that much service to be delivered outside of Microsoft Word and things when I really began this journey, right? So
Right.
when when you look at the cyber warranty, really the aim was how do we become super valuable, super fast to pay out, frictionless, and highly scalable as a business. And you start to incorporate a lot of those pieces together. And it's to me, it's just the, seeing how useful services really are, how necessary they are to a business, and how they become more and more necessary. And I think a good example is like Chat GPT,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, the AI.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
if anyone's ever used it, it's mind blowing at what this thing can produce as soon as you hit that return keystroke, right? Where Google can produce a list of search queries, this could produce, a historical, you know, document for you, custom written. It's incredible. So when you see those tools being put into place, so I guess it's really about the tools that are there that are being put into place to help people go about and produce their goods and services. I was really completely unaware of, and it's quite impressive to see how they help businesses scale. And again, I'm not trying to pitch the services. That's what I think is pretty valuable. What some of these services can do.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not going to disagree because there's plenty of services out there that, at the end of the day, if I recall, one of our former clients, they didn't have an IT person. They just had one dude who grew up with computers and was like 10 years younger than everybody else on the staff, and he was the de facto tech guy.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that like, and I feel like a lot of smaller companies try to get away with that as much as they can because they don't want to pay for like an IT person or a
Yeah. Sure.
service or something like that. And it's again, not trying to like sell MSPs, but like having at least somebody who knows what they're doing with these things is game changing because you
Right.
never know how many vulnerabilities are just in your firewall alone. How many
Yeah.
people I could guarantee you there's plenty of businesses out there right now that have like a Comcast router that's just default username password.
Yeah.
And
No, I mean we've seen it, right? So,
we've literally seen that, and people use weak
or how
passwords
how
all the
about the
time.
time that a client forgot their backup recovery passwords and you
Right.
guessed them?
Yeah. And that it's
You can't make it up.
genuinely well, I mean that one's kind of upsetting that like your backup person set it to such an easily guessed password. But like I'll definitely agree. Services actually, and definitely, I think in the IT world, you get what you pay for rings true for a lot of things, um, especially when it comes to services and people that you're hiring to work on your environment. Now, when it comes to like antivirus, maybe not so much because a lot of the name brand ones just hog all your resources, but um, EDR I think is circumventing a lot of the resource hogging.
Yeah.
I think
EDR,
yeah,
very
Sentinel
cool
One is a
service.
big one that they don't use very much resources at all, and that's great.
Yeah.
Um, but anyways,
It's easy to deploy. It's a super high return on investment. It's very effective, and on our cyber warranty, we've embedded with Sentinel One,
right?
so our system can take the data from a client's on-prem machines that has Sentinel One running on it, and we can adjudicate claims based on the feedback from Sentinel One and other outside validated sources that we use. But it's really an incredible amount of data generation and validation that happens almost instantly, and I guess that would be a better answer to your question. It's not just how useful these services are. It's the magnitude of value that these services can now provide for dollars a month per
Right.
per a machine, right? It's quite impressive from that standpoint, and you know that's that's why I like integrating with them directly, because these services are cutting edge, top of the line, super effective, a lot of data, and all of that data then comes in to our databases, and then can be scrubbed with our AI tools to better facilitate risk analysis for a client, for a service that or a product that we want to provide to the marketplace. It's just super cool to be at a confluence of the technologies and also delivering a valuable service to businesses and our clients.
Very true. And I think with that, we're going to wrap up this episode.
Great.
And
Okay.
as always, we appreciate you listeners. If you enjoy this, feel free to subscribe to us on YouTube and leave us a review. And thank you for listening.